Well, here we are. Another episode of Bits and Bobs coming for you this week. Conán, we're spoiling the listeners.
Hello everyone.
Will Slattery has joined us. Will, very welcome.
Hi, Joe.
Good to have you with us. I keep forgetting to say it. Do follow the show. Or whatever, don't. Do whatever you want.
Like, and if I smash that like button.
Yeah. Do follow the show, though. It is very helpful. Lots of you have been doing it, so that's very much appreciated. And lots of you are sending in emails, which is also very much appreciated. Indo Sport podcast at independent.ie. I do like coming in every morning and just reading emails. Nice start to the day, you know.
You love Bits and Bobs, don't you? You're really in your element.
To be fair, you're getting good emails. Like, I'm actually very pleasantly surprised the quality of you. Like, some of the comments we get on our show, I'd never read in a million years.
Wow.
No offense to our listeners. These are thoughtful emails.
Slattery, my listeners are fools. No, some very good ones. Sorry, I'm supping coffee there as I talk. Yeah, I do enjoy Bits and Bobs. It's a fun part of the week.
Drink a coffee, read the emails.
All that kind of business, yeah. Well, I said a few weeks ago, it is as close as I'll ever feel to Wogan. Not a huge amount going on today. We've covered most of it in the football show, really. FAI General Assembly vote this evening, as discussed with Dan. A lot of Premier League last night. Gary Breen was on. We had a good run through of the evening, which I mainly watched, by the way, on the overlap. Watch along. Did you go for it? It was very good. Honestly, I know, and Dan said the same thing to me off air. The edited down clips would suggest it was all very performative and for the cameras. Yeah. But across the 2 hours, it really wasn't. There were long 15, 20-second spells of no one even talking, just watching the game. And I found in the minute moments, because you could obviously, you got the clock, they have the clock at the Emirates. So you sync your TV perfectly to it and you have them playing on your phone. And in like the small moments, you get great insights, small things, you know. He has to take him on there, doesn't he, Roy? Yeah, he does. I don't know what he's doing. That kind of stuff that they wouldn't have time to discuss post-match. So it's amazing how quickly habits are changing.
Surprised Sky don't offer that as an option. Like, they're sitting there during the match. So, you know, that's something they do in America. A lot on ESPN for big college football games. They'd have, you know, coaches film while they're watching the game. That sounds like perfect for that. Considering they're already there with TV cameras rolling, why not in Sky Sports Premier League have one version of it? Or
that's interesting. Yeah. God, that's a no-brainer idea. Yeah, I think I'd watch it a bit.
I'm taking it for myself, so they can buy it off me.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when commentators are obviously amazing at what they do, but it's a different skill set. And when you know all the players and when you have great, you know, a 50-inch television with perfect HD, not as necessary to have Maserati identified, you know.
Yeah, well, like the Manning cast in America, like that's been very popular. Eli and Peyton Manning just talking through the game, kind of like you said, in a more relaxed fashion, but given their insights as well, it's been pretty popular. So.
Yeah. Just to mention, we talked the Ipswich captain refusing to wear the rainbow armband on Tuesdays, Bits and Bobs. Similar situation at Manchester United now. So Adidas had a rainbow jacket for warm-ups and Nazir Mazraoui said he wouldn't be able to wear the jacket on the grounds of his Muslim faith, which was the same situation with the Ipswich captain. So the piece I was reading in The Guardian said he declined to wear the jacket and to, quote, maintain team ethos and togetherness. The rest of the team decided they would abandon the jacket too, so that he wouldn't be singled out. Though The Athletic are reporting some United players very unhappy with the decision. The club's LGBTQ plus supporters club said they had a feeling of great disappointment. We teased all of that out on Tuesday. If you want to listen back, that tricky area where very simple, you would think broadly acceptable gestures meet a more complicated world, and corporate United and football trying to navigate their way through it. I'll push on. So some emails in on Caoimhín Kelleher. So Conán, you had this prepared, whether an email was addressing this or not. You had done your magic, so go on, play. I was going to say, given his age profile, 70-80. For Kelleher. What's wrong with that?
70-80?
You now have somebody who's going to be on that level for the next 15 years.
Kelleher's going to be the best goalkeeper in the world.
On that level, in that top tier.
Have we enough body of evidence for this?
Oh, we're getting there. He'll get better and better with each passing season.
They're holding out for 35, 40.
Sorry, they should not be selling him for 40 million.
Nottingham Forest were in for him. That was more in the region of 20 million.
Do you know what? That's I'm going back to 80. If you're going to be giving me that crap, it's 80 or nothing. So Donal emailed in, how's Joe and the lads? Ronan and Conan's reaction to your, in my opinion, slightly over the top evaluation of Caoimhín Kelleher was reminiscent of Tommy Bowes' classic incredulous 10 siblings comment.
10 siblings?
Here we are. 40 million would be nice business for him. But stick to your guns if you believe so. Top podcast listening since day one. Keep it going, Donal. Yeah, a few people were in touch last night.
80 million.
Yeah. It was an unfortunate moment. It was a confidence of it was a mistake of confidence actually and intelligence in letting the ball go. I'm throwing another 5 mil onto the price.
The rate just went down 10%. Go back to Tuesday as well. This is the exact same mistake that I had said he did against Aston Villa.
All right,
except didn't have players to punish him. Aston Villa, look at Dean, I think it was, missed an open net, but he let the cross go over his head, didn't realise there was a player behind him.
Okay. And
obviously, but like, I don't obviously blame him, but geez, somebody at Liverpool should have said to him, you got away with one there, you do that again, that's a goal, it does not happen again. But obviously it didn't, because you wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, it's fair.
Like, he'll never do that again.
I don't think so. Now, the second goal he should have saved is almost as worrying.
Yeah, that was bad.
I'll drop it down to 75.
You'd accept 75 now, though?
What would you take for Caoimhín?
Well, it is great that we're having a conversation with an Irish player at a top club in some sort of transfer saga. Like, how long? Is it Robbie Keane in 2008 or 9 that there was an actual Irish player like either going to or coming from a big club? 80, 40, 50. Just the fact that we're having this conversation, I feel, is being overlooked slightly. That an Irish player is at one of the biggest clubs in the world. And we're
saying 80.
Yeah, 80, 100%.
Champions Cup is back. So Premier Sports have the rights, which is another interesting development for this tournament. Although in Ireland there'll still be the free-to-air one game a weekend, which I think is very important to kind of keep it front of minds for people. So it's the Munster game this weekend. So after the football last night, Premier through to their promo for the Champions Cup. Have a listen. Freddie Michalak in full Eric Cantona mode.
They say the flame is dwindling. They say our game is in trouble. They say they're falling out of love with rugby. But how can you not be romantic about the Champions Cup?
So, I mean, if you'd said to me that was Cantona, I'd be like, yeah, they leaned into it. Where is the Champions Cup 2024, Will?
I think, unfortunately, Freddie's first 2 or 3 sentences there probably sum it up. The game is the tournament is dwindling, the interest level, the flame is going.
I'm in trouble.
Like,
I thought it was amazing that made it past the marketing script supervisors.
Yeah.
Let's ignore all that.
Like, it's funny, we were chatting off air, like it's a good montage of great moments from the history of the tournament, but it's kind of striking how many of them come from what we would associate with the glory days of the tournament, kind of when Munster and Leinster first started winning the trophy.
They had Frawley's missed drop goal in there.
Yeah, because to be fair, the finals in the last couple of years have saved the competition, and if it wasn't for Leinster's kind of stumbles and that storyline, like say if they had that drop goal had gone through the post, what would you be coming into this year really to hang the tournament on? There wouldn't be a whole lot. Like the fact that the Ireland game was last weekend, an additional match kind of bleeding into the club window, meant that, God, there was no talk of it. Like even on our show, The Left Wing on Tuesday, ordinarily it'd be an hour, at least an hour going over. We did 15 minutes because we spent so much time talking about the Ireland game. It felt like an add-on at the end. Like, I know you've been covering it for Virgin over a couple of years as well, before RT came back into it, so you would have been very plugged in. Like it's
just to say, the Virgin deal wasn't as good because
you had Cardiff Blues one week, and I felt bad for you.
It was tied in with whatever game Channel 4 got as well. They were kind of doing the Virgin thing over in the UK there was times where I wasn't sure who was picking the game, but obviously, like if Saracens were playing Cardiff, they'd go, oh yeah, we'll get a bit of Saracens. Whereas obviously now with the RTE deal, they always seem to have a province, so that helps it in Irish terms.
Yeah. Like it's funny, you can't trace back the kind of the decline to when they revamped it in 2014-15, when it was kind of the English-French, putting their stamp on it. Even though for the first few years of that, nothing really drastically changed about the tournament. Like there was still the same level of teams that were competitive. But now you're looking at, say, the last 4 seasons, which is kind of like a World Cup cycle. It's been a little, Leinster, Toulouse, La Rochelle every year in the final. 3 teams in the final in 6 years. There's been 6 teams in the Champions League final in the last 4 years. So you wouldn't and that's hardly a tournament where you'd say a lot of teams have a good chance of winning it. And the only teams they've been knocked out of, those 3 teams, by each other. So, like, there's been very little jeopardy when those 3 teams have reached the knockout stages. The format is very confusing. It's been chopped and changed a lot. It's hard to follow. The pool stages have very little jeopardy. You know, I think the last 2 years has been teams qualifying for the knockouts with 1 win. Like, so you have all that together. There's very little compelling reasons for a non-hardcore rugby fan to watch this weekend. I think you can safely say tune in semi-final, final stage if you're really interested to see if Leinster can finally win it. Up to that point, you're kind of just jockeying for seeding. And that's coming from someone who loves this tournament. I used to like it probably more than the Six Nations because the European flair has captured my imagination. But you're looking at the fixture list and you're just saying, like, these games are almost meaningless for the top teams because they will win their way through pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think of someone who, you know, covers a lot of sports but also, you know, hosts rugby shows? Like, do you get engaged by it?
Oh, it's to use Freddie's word, it's dwindling a touch, yeah. The Leinster psychodrama, Rory McIlroy-esque situation
saving it
is very compelling.
Yeah,
I it's hard to make a case that it's going in the right direction. And you chat to former rugby players who've had great times in this competition, they feel the same way. They're almost looking on with a sense of, God, with each passing year, my medal feels less than it kind of than it should because this tournament's drifting away.
Because a massive thing has been the English team's decline, the salary cap going down, their purchasing power. Like, you look at, obviously Saracens had their salary cap issues, but from a European standpoint, there was no salary cap. So if you're measuring their squad against those squads at the time, very competitive. So England don't have a live contender really.
Yeah.
You know, in France, Toulouse take it really seriously. La Rochelle obviously do as well. Bordeaux too. But outside of that, there's not that many actual viable contenders.
No, La Rochelle have been a real beacon for it, you know, and Rog obviously is kind of box office. I think also maybe in Irish rugby, we've become sort of victims of our own success in that, like, we can all remember the miracle matches and how, my God, we're in a group with a French team and can we beat an English team? And it was such a mad thing when Rog said, you know, I think we're as good as the English team. It's like, God, are we? Could we be as good as a Premiership team? And now we're like looking at Premiership teams as distinctly average by comparison. And so the group stages, and I agree with you, the current format is lesser than the old format. But regardless, the group stages once upon a time for the provinces were a big deal because it was like, can they get through? Could they get in a way losing bonus point in Sale? Whereas now there's a degree of waiting for the knockout stages, a nagging sense Munster have a ceiling, and they've proven as much. So it's hard to get too excited about them. And well, we're just counting down to the big game for Leinster against one of the big ones. So therefore, 90% of the tournament from an Irish point of view has been diluted versus 10, 15 years ago in a way that's not the fault of the messing around which has happened, but the messing around as in the English and French, the TV deal gone from Sky, all of that's happened as the Irish teams have kind of got, you know, the group stages are less compelling. So I think from our perspective, it's especially kind of diluted.
Yeah, it's not one thing. It's like 5 or 6 things you touched on there. Like I wouldn't underestimate the changing of that pool stage. You mentioned there, like the away, like that losing away bonus point was such a compelling storyline. Like to get a losing bonus point in Claremont or Toulouse or against a big English team could be vital between winning the tournament and not winning the tournament. And, you know, they lost a week during COVID. It used to be a 9-week tournament. Now it's an 8-week tournament. And they haven't been able to...
Is it only 8 weeks?
Yeah, they haven't been... So it's 4 pool matches and 4 knockout matches. It used to be 6 pool matches and 3 knockout matches.
Yeah.
So they lost 1 week and they haven't been able to wrestle that back off the English and French clubs. So that means that's the reason the format is so out of whack. Because ideally you'd have like an actual group stage, you know, that had 6 rounds of matches. It wasn't perfect either. You know, obviously when teams were out of contention, the last 2 rounds, they could, you know, put out shadow teams. But by and large, there was, you know, that kind of like... I suppose there was some tactics to how you actually got your point as well. Whereas now, you know, you win your 2 home games, you can put the feet up, you're probably through, and you don't need to actually go chasing anything. Whereas, like, in the original format, the top 6 went in, and then only 2 runners-up went in. So it was quite punitive. Like, you really had to be on your game, or you were, if you lost your first game, you had to be almost perfect to qualify. It's the opposite now. And, like, you know, the South African teams being in it, you know, it makes sense to a degree in the URC. They've added a lot, but, you know, logistically, we've had two seasons in a row when a South African team has won their last 16 game and rested 15 players for the quarterfinal.
Yeah.
Like, that's a joke for the marquee tournament, you know?
Yeah, they prioritise the URC.
Yeah.
Someone needs to send them the memo.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of it? Yeah.
This tournament's better.
But like the Bulls could have potentially won the Champions Cup last year with their squad, and Jake White decided to rest all of his players.
Yeah, that's shocking. He should have been. There should have been. Was there a reprimand?
No,
in the
I
end?
don't think so.
It's a difficult thing to prove.
Yeah.
Coach can always say, "I just thought he was going better in training."
Yeah, but yeah, it's in an interesting place, and
It is.
I think the tournament's being saved by that kind of the Leinster drama. If that wasn't a piece of it, like what would an English supporter this weekend have to get excited about really in the long term? Like,
Don't know their own team, but that the second that Leinster, Mayo, or Rory McIlroy win the big one, the world will be a lesser place. Right now, it's just it's more interesting. The longer they can string this out.
Mayo fans don't realise that either. Like, there's so much beauty.
No, they
in their
think
game.
they want to win. You don't.
Like,
You don't want to win, Mayo.
the amount of people who are just suffering through apathy, like, this is way better.
Yeah.
Like, every season, every January, it matters. Like, there's hope, and
Yeah.
they need to just appreciate that pain, that misery.
I agree with that. Now, I suspect the emails may disagree, but I agree with that. This was kind of an interesting one. Hey lads, I love the podcast. Can we please talk about kit supplier Castore? I feel like clubs are going with them to make more money. I don't know what that's based on, to be fair. I don't know how they're making more money. Maybe they're getting more money from Castore. And the emailer Gav, for legal reasons, Gav, I'm going to soften your next line. He's not sure all fans want them. We now see the issues with the Leinster jerseys. If you missed this during the week, Leinster jerseys were sent out to fans minus the crest. It was a mistake. I don't think these things can happen. But he adds, we're seeing a really basic design, boring kits like Ireland's being sold at very high prices, and then there were the other quality issues as seen with Aston Villa in previous season. Thanks, Gav. I'd sort of been sleeping on the Castore success story. It's unbelievable. This, would you know top of your head when Castore was founded?
oh, no, would you expect me to? Like,
2007.
It was only founded 9 years ago.
Wow.
Like, this is one of the more remarkable business success stories of the past decade, obviously, within 9 years. So, founded, don't worry, this is the short version. Founded in 2015. They only went online in 16. Founded in 15. They're Manchester based. The brothers, Thomas and Philip, from Liverpool. Tom and Philip, they were 25 and 22 years old respectively when they founded this company. Could you imagine your 22-year-old brother coming to you saying, let's found like another Umbro or another Adidas? You'd be like, I think the market's good, man. We're all right. We're going to lose our hats on this. So 25, 22 years old. Tom had played football to a high level, Tranmere Rovers, and Philip had played some cricket to a decent level too. So they were sports people, but they'd been rejected and they decided, God, what do we do with the rest of our lives? They were working in banking, weren't enjoying it. They said, let's give this a go and raise some money. So within 4 years of founding, Andy Murray became one of their people. Now, they gave Andy equity in the company. This is going to turn out to be a good deal for Andy. I'll just save you the suspense now. So they gave Andy Murray equity. That's a big get. In 2020, during COVID, they get Rangers on a 5-year jersey deal. 2021, they get McLaren of Formula One. They get Wolves. They get Saracens Rugby. And they get Newcastle. So 21, just kind of 4 or 5 years after going online, is an unbelievable deal. They get Villa in 22, also Sevilla and Bayer Leverkusen. In 23, they get the Republic of Ireland. They also take Red Bull from Puma, and they get New Zealand Cricket. And in 2024, Everton and Ulster Rugby. Castore are now valued at £1 billion. Thank you very much, Andy Murray, in his Castore slippers, laughing all the way to the bank. They employ 500 people.
that is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
That is.
Incredible. Yeah.
Isn't it just?
The last 5 years that you lined out there as well.
How has there not been a Netflix documentary done on this?
I like, it's absolutely incredible. So where were they? 25 and 22. So they're now 34 and 29 with 31. So they're in their early 30s and they've got this £1 billion business. It's amazing. And they're handsome, like they're sporty looking. It's just, So that's the Castore story. Their jerseys are a little bit boring. Well, where does simple and timeless meet? plain and repetitive? Is the question.
Yeah, it's definitely a conundrum that everybody should be wrestling with, because obviously we all like a bit of plain, we all like a bit of old fashioned as well. Every time you see somebody make a retro jersey, it's like the Ireland one against Australia. It's like, why do you just stick with that?
I hated that one.
God.
Everyone seemed to like it.
You're in a minority of one.
Yeah, everyone I know was like, what a jersey. I was like, am I?
I loved it. Yeah.
What was the hate?
I just hated the collar. I just thought it looked really old school. But not in a good way. I don't know.
The 150th commemorative jersey looked old school.
It did, yeah. I know.
I wonder were they going for that?
Yeah, but I hated it. So.
Wow.
People were saying they should use it generally.
Yeah,
That's exactly my point. Yeah, every time you see something like that,
Do you not?
Maybe I'm Castore's target audience, obviously.
Yeah. Plain.
Yeah.
Crest done. I thought I'd love the collar to come back in rugby. You like the round neck?
I haven't devoted a huge amount of time to thinking.
That's fair.
I love it.
I'm not. I like kits. Do not get me excited. There's enough to talk about on the pitch. So I like this email. I like obviously you want the crest on your jersey when you buy it. That's obvious. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like I can't say like the Leinster jersey they've made. I can't say it's massively different to the other ones in my mind's eye.
I'm sort of with you. I initially, when we were saying, well, we read this out, I was like, I have nothing to say about this. But it was just when I looked into Castore, I thought, we should mention the success story. But so the Irish one is very simple. It's just a crest and it's green. A bit like Will. I don't have like a kind of visceral reaction against it.
But you would have seen over the last year a lot of commentary online from some Irish fans complaining about something that happened to not like a replica jersey that they bought or a tracksuit that they bought or something. They just would have been complaining about something that you wouldn't have seen, or I certainly wouldn't have seen as much as another brand or another tracksuit back, when Ireland were made by somebody else. And obviously last season Villa had a number of issues that were well documented.
Can you refresh my memory on those?
Sweat,
one of them was the sweat. Like I was wondering, was it just the players that they couldn't handle? Ross Barkley in particular is a very sweaty player, but everybody seemed to be suffering from the Ross Barkley syndrome, where it looked like they were going in for showers.
It's a bit like sometimes you see like Tiger Woods very sweaty. Generally, his golf shirt at times will be like big patches of sweat all over it. So it's rare now in a football jersey you see big patches of sweat, but that was the Villa one, wasn't it?
And I think the jerseys that are actually being made for the players to wear, there's some sort of material and product that will hold the sweat better or will get rid of the sweat, whereas the players had been complaining that this jersey was holding it and the jerseys were getting heavier as they were playing, and Villa actually ordered a new batch to be made for them, and it took a few weeks for that to happen, but it did. Apparently they did get sent out new jerseys. I don't know if it made that much difference. I think what happened is Villa started winning matches and people stopped complaining about it as much. They stopped looking for reasons. But then, like as late as April last season, Villa were playing a game. Villa finished top four, so it's not like just this team meandering along. They were playing Bournemouth, and Emi Martinez is coming walking out with his crest upside down. Like this is a Yashin winning goalkeeper currently at that stage, voted the best goalkeeper in the world, had won the World Cup, and he's going out and the crest that he's wearing in the Premier League game is upside down on his jersey. Like that's just incredible.
I am fascinated as to how they got so many big clients so quickly. Like that's like
I know.
I don't understand. Like, I'd actually love you to get the two brothers on and interview them and find out like the story.
We should try.
Like because
although let's not let's not lead with that stuff there.
Especially jumping from like a few English teams to Bayer Leverkusen and Sevilla, like that's a massive jump, and like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So Castore, in short, they're not worried about your email, Gav. They're worth £1 billion and things are going just fine for them.
Pep Guardiola. Like.
I wouldn't. It was only when I had to Google Castore jerseys and look in images to see what I thought of them, but I wouldn't be kind of aware of this generally or notice a huge difference in the Leinster jersey.
Yeah, I could see you coming in next week with a Castore top, having been signed up as an ambassador off the back of extolling their life story.
Yeah, for equity. I don't know how much equity Andy Murray got in this £1 billion business, but I'm sure.
Because he used to be Fred Perry, didn't he? He used to wear a lot of Fred Perry gear, probably worth a few quid as well. So
Under Armour as well, he was.
Yeah, he was, yeah. But so in 2019, they're kind of still nobody. They go to Andy Murray. It's like, okay, I'll do it. What percentage would he at least have asked for? You got to ask for 10.
More? Yeah.
More, yeah.
Oh, hang on, Mr. 80 million here. You're not asking for more?
I think you need a finance course.
Hang on, 10% of a business is a lot to give away.
Well, like a business of what? Up to that point, did they not have any clients?
Well, no one that Wikipedia told me about.
Okay, so yeah, I think he could have gotten 20.
25. Like, imagine Dragons Den. You're coming in there. You're 22, or you're 24, 25 at this stage.
My maths tells me what 25% of a billion is. Good deal.
I'm going to Google this as soon as I'm done here. I'm actually fascinated by this story.
Yeah. We had one or two other bits in. Quite enough day. There was a long email in from Sean extolling Jim Gavin. At this stage, he was looking forward to Martin Brennan making the case in Thursday's Indo for Jim Gavin running for the Áras. He's a leader. I remember being told once, a sure sign of exceptional leadership is surrounding yourself with those more capable. This came to light with Jim's chairmanship at the FRC, his presence alone immediately making the minds up of those he asked to join. Not one of them said no, Jim told Joe. What Jim failed to do was mention the reason no one said no. Jim himself. And then he talks about the military precision, all the processes undertaken. Nobody can accuse the FRC of bias or putting through their own idealistic fantasies for Gaelic football. The first survey, the 7,000 responses. That's the biggest compliment I can pay Jim and the whole process. They've ticked every box. Which brings me to Brehony's beat, says Sean. Is that what it's Brehony's beat?
Brehony beat.
Is that what it is? Sorry, the Brehony beat. Surely, he says, such a leader would be better suited to creating real change. Some of our politicians have been coining by working in the office of Taoiseach rather than lying up in the Phoenix Park. Best Sean. So Sean is saying, Áras and Uachtaráin not good enough for Jim. Where can he affect the most change?
You wouldn't get that in the left-wing email list, would you? That's quality.
It's a great email. Sorry, Sean. It's a long one as well. I didn't get to all of it. But in effect, presidency below Jim Gavin's skill set.
He does answer questions as like a politician as any manager I've ever seen. Like I said, he does, no matter what you ask him, will turn it completely around onto what he wants to talk about or just ignore it. Like more so when he was a Dublin manager than obviously now when he's off the clock and doing other things. But he actually does answer questions very much like a politician.
Yeah. Smart man. And he was great with us. He chatted before and after for 15, 20 minutes, almost either side. And that little bit more relaxed, obviously, off air. And very charming.
Yeah, very charming.
I'd never met him before.
I wasn't going to say funny, but like definitely very likeable.
Sense of humour, like
witty. Yeah,
a lightness to the chat.
It's like the best example I always use. Remember the Roy Hodgson interview where he's given out to the BBC reporter?
Yeah,
and he lets him have it. Basically,
he doesn't mean for it to go out in air though.
I always remember looking at that thinking, oh yeah, I could see it now. I could see Roy Hodgson and that changing him now.
Why he's a manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I could see it with Jim Gavin. Not that Jim Gavin let us have it, but suddenly you see that human side, that likability, charisma. Yeah. And it was like, okay, actually I see it now. We saw the stony-faced politician interviews. Probably just didn't want to give anything away in the media. And I always wondered, geez, what do the players think of him though? Are they just afraid? Is he standoffish? Is he just running a really good ship and everybody else is doing things beneath him? And then you see it and it's like, oh my God. And actually the passion with which he speaks about coaching and things like that as well, which again, I never really got a glimpse of in many interviews.
He was done to us. Is that off the record? I don't know.
Let's go with it.
Go on.
Well, it was just, I don't think it's breaking, I don't think it's unfair. He was just talking about like how one-on-ones, he's like, God, we were in Dublin, you know, eyes lit up with a one-on-one. It's like, rule number one was if there's a one-on-one, fire it in there. But he got very animated talking and like, all that stuff. So
even the way I was on the podcast, even the way he spoke, his voice changed when he said that line.
Oh, sorry, he said it.
No, that was on the show. No, that was on the show. Yeah, but in your interview, but even when he said like, even how he said it, his voice changed very perceptibly than what it had been when he was speaking about the FRC rules and kind of the big picture stuff. It kind of went into Jim the football man, you know, and he was like, oh no, we're going for that.
Well, off air, I mean, he practically like mimed how you would kick the football, you know, and I was like, geez, well, he's also won and around as a player. He really knows what he's doing here. So.
And you could just see it all. And he said something that I'll remember because I was obviously picking his brain for coaching nuggets. Jim, what would you do if you had this specific player? But he said something like it was kick first, hand pass second, then run was your third option.
Yes.
So simple. A lot of people probably already know it. It certainly would know that principle anyway, but then actually somebody just saying it like that.
And it's a good, like all the great coaches, such a simple message.
Exactly.
Like you'll always remember that. I kick first, hand pass second, run third.
And now all the players know that that's my last resort to run with this ball.
Because I remember Paul Flynn saying before, at club level, you can run with the ball and be pretty dangerous and effective. At inter-county level, you don't get away with it. Running's a bad option.
Yeah.
So hence, I just feel somewhere in his head there's Jim, akin to Joe Schmidt and Johnny Sexton,
And there was a throwaway line about coaching underage, and I think, did he do some coaching with like Paddy Bowden or something?
Kids,
Yeah, but I thought if he was your underage manager, like you would be expecting to win a lot of matches. Like I'd love to be like a teenage player, and like the 5-time All-Ireland winner comes in to coach your team, and just like you're just like there's kind of pressure on Jim to be like a really good manager. I feel in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a dad giving out to him that his son's not being picked on the team, which will certainly be happening as well, which is something beautiful about that.
This is just a mention as opposed to a freewheeling chat, but I just thought it was. I saw the headline and I clicked in. Bradley Wiggins is sort of one of those people I'm residually interested in. You guys, not especially, no. So he was doing that high performance, the Diary of a CEO. They're all, he's doing one of those. Diary of a CEO. He's doing Diary of a CEO. So he's really had a rotten time. I always remember being at the Olympics in 2012 and Wiggins was fresh off winning the Tour de France. Turned out subsequently to be a jiffy bag stained situation. But at that stage, he was such a rock star. I can't tell you in London. He was Liam Gallagher on a bike, he was really so amazingly famous and had a great Olympics as well. And I always remember thinking, God, he's got star quality. His life has really kind of gone down a tough path. So he had debts totaling £1 million and he's been declared bankrupt. The Mail say reportedly left homeless and sleeping at various addresses, including that of his ex-wife for a time, believed to be close to selling his Olympic medals. So he's just been talking about maybe how difficult life has been for him. So his father, it's well known, left when he was 2, difficult relationship, which was, obviously not great. But his teenage years, he didn't reveal this week, but I suppose he talked about it a bit more. Teenage years, Bradley Wiggins was sexually abused for 3 years by a coach from the age of 13 to 16. And so he was talking about how that's impacted him. He said, when I started to accept that, when I was in my 30s, I realised it was partly the reason why I was so successful. Cycling was the biggest distraction I could have had for all these years. But then I retired from cycling. I started to hate cycling. I blame it for the fact I had met that man. So a really kind of complicated picture. And then weirdly, of all people, someone has reached out to pay for him to go to a specialised centre and get help and pay for the whole thing. Lance Armstrong, of all people, reached out to him. Lance is a good man. I'm not saying that to condone what he did, but it's a bit disproportionate to what some people do in the world. He has a big heart deep down. He also has an ego as big as a house, laughed Bradley. So he's 44 years of age now, says he's in best place he's been. But I just thought that was worth a quick mention. Any other business? Anything grabbing people? We're pretty much done.
A bit disproportionate to what other people do in the world. I mean, you could say that about anybody and put it in a decent light then, can't you?
Well, it's true. Yeah. But I sort of... let's not get into the whole Lance thing. Yeah. But, there is a degree of they were all doing it and etc. It's just he was such a nasty individual in tandem with it, I think. It makes him all the more of a villain.
Yeah.
And at the time you mentioned the Bradley Wiggins' real fame, he was very strongly against Lance Armstrong. He was like hammering him in the media, saying he was this and he's that, and it's obviously very different now.
It's sort of unravelled then for Wiggins, on that front a bit. Alrighty, that is bits and bobs for today. We have a Friday panel tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Tommy Martin, John Green, Conor McKeown,
and Joe Malloy.
Cool. Amongst other things, we'll talk about Donegal and their Middle East extravaganza. Have you seen this? Jim McGuinness, Donegal, they're going to Abu Dhabi for a week. This month, as the training ban lifts, I think the cost of it's going to be €80,000 reportedly. It's like... They're going to win the All-Ireland.
And all this week we've been talking about the austerity in Donegal, but not for Jim McGuinness's Donegal side.
Getting them into shape. So we'll see what Tommy Martin has to say about all this.
Yeah.
Do I have time to raise one point before we end?
Raise away. This is the any other business section.
Ties in slightly to the Champions Cup, the dwindling interest. I thought it was fascinating that GA announced their master fixtures list today, and on the opening,
did they?
That's the point. Right. And on the opening day of the league, we have
I should have mentioned that in news.
An All Ireland final rematch, Galway Armagh.
Yeah.
We have Paddy Talley versus Malachy O'Rourke, and we have Dublin versus Mayo in a triple header to open the league.
Nice.
New rules showcase. The GA, one tweet. The master fixtures list has been announced. That's it. Like, talk about not building interest or promotion. Like, that is actually negligent. Like, you hear a lot, oh, how the GA should promote this, that, and you're kind of like, well, what should they do? And then you see a tweet like that, you're like, it's almost like they're trolling people who think that, like, to put out such a ridiculously understated tweet to announce your year, like, any other sporting organisation would be counting down by the day and have a big fireworks, kind of, and then it's like, this is the master fixtures list. The end. When like a big showcase like that for the opening night, I just think it's,
Is there a beauty to that though?
No, I don't think so. Some people might argue that, it's so genuine in keeping with the GA. Like,
It's just so classy.
but anyone who says that, I don't agree.
Okay. We are done. Conán, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.